Do do do, theme song. Do do do, I'm broke, so this is my theme song. Do do do, just imagine this is an awesome theme song. Do do, theme song. Left of the box. Hello, welcome to Left of the Box. Bonjour, bienvenue. I'm Sandy. Welcome, everyone, to this very kind of dark and stormy night here in southwestern Ontario. There is a travel advisory, there is a storm warning, so, should the power go out, that's probably what did it, although it doesn't look too bad right now, cross my fingers. Well, so far in the chat, we have a whole bunch of people. Thank you for coming out. Soul Life, My Dogs Are Goth, Looney Tunes, 9,000. Instead of, 8,999. 9,000 is easier to say. Miss Tree Moon, I don't think I've seen your name before, so welcome to the Sandbox. MIDI Doctors, the Anti-Corporatist, and I think I've said everyone's name, and I'm terribly sorry if I missed you. Oh, Carrie Woods is also in. Germ is also, okay. Lots of people are in. Welcome, thank you. Before we get started, I need your opinion on something. I'm wearing this kind of, button-up collared shirt. Do I go with the professional look or do I do the Sam Cedar look? Let me know which one. Do I do this one or the Sam Cedar look or do I be a little bit more conservative and do like, professional YouTuber look? Let me know which one you guys prefer. I don't have any chest hair to show off though. Oh. Anyway, so I have a lot in store for you today. There's been a lot happening in the news, of course. The world going to hell with Gaza and Yemen and all of that sort of stuff. And I'm just looking over at chat to see which one of the looks you guys prefer. There is a delay, so this makes me have to go back and forth a lot. Sam Cedar look, professional strident. It's more twisted. So I think that's a 50-50. Well, Carrie suggests that I could just glue some cat hair onto my chest to get that kind of chest hair look that Sam Cedar pulls off when he's, unbuttoning a little bit. I don't know. It looks 50-50. You guys seem a little bit torn as to, the Sam Cedar look or the button-up professional look. Okay. So, where to get started? I think I've been following into somewhat of a pattern with how I start. I usually start off with like news in Gaza and whatnot. Oh, just seeing a breaking news out of the corner of my eyes. A New York state judge has ordered Donald Trump to pay the New York Times a large number of money for legal and attorney fees related to a frivolous lawsuit that Trump brought against the newspaper, says the anti-corporatist. That wouldn't surprise me. Okay, it looks like Looney Tunes is the only one kind of thirsting right now. Everyone else is kind of saying, the button-up look is kind of looking good. You're being outvoted, Looney Tunes. We'll see. We'll see how long this lasts, because it might get hot in here. Ah. Okay. Yeah. So I've been starting these streams off with updates in Gaza, in Israel, and all of the horror show that's happening over there. And as always, I try to stay away from the worst of the worst of the worst. All of it's bad, but I try not to show anything graphic. Although we will be hearing some graphic tales of what's happening. And in the past week, there's been some escalations with, the United States attacking Yemen and Canada supporting, of course. But the reality is that's nothing new. We'll get to that in a moment. Well, in a long moment. I gotta get through everything else first. So Let's see. Christy said, Sam Cedar look for the love of everything unholy. Sam Cedar. Why did I get the feeling you would prefer that look? Hey, I'm comfortable both way. Okay, so before we get into the horrible news and distraction like that, tell you what, how about when we get to more Canadian news, I'll loosen up a bit. What's happening in Gaza, it's a little bit more extreme for me to be a little bit more flirtatious, I think. It doesn't quite suit the mood. Although, full admittedly, Sam gets to pull it off all the time with, his little openings, and it's not distracting at all when he's giving the news. Not at all. I'm not distracted by that. Oh my God. I can't do this and then segue into Gaza. It's pretty horrible. Okay, we'll mellow out maybe. Chill out. So that said, calm down a little, everyone, and we can get into the news about Gaza, because it is horrible, horrible over there. So stop saying things in the comments that's going to get my attention and pull me away from this. Anyway, let's get started, shall we? So, oh, I gotta make that bigger. Somebody that I super appreciate over on Twitter. Go follow her. She is fantastic. The Left Canadian Radical, Tory. And she's quote tweeting this saying, media coverage. Israel media reports the mental health of nearly half of Israelis has deteriorated during the war, accompanied by a sharp increase in the consumption of antidepressant medications. And Tory says, I doubt it's over the genocide, but being criticized around the world for the genocide. Israel's shocked to learn the world isn't as racist as they are. And also you can see a lot of other comments, going down those lines, they should stop unaliving children, their conscience is haunting them, so on and so forth. And do you know what I'm going to do to everyone right now? I'm going to be nuanced and make you feel bad for some of them. As always, it's easy to see a headline and jump to conclusions where your emotions kind of take over, and there's a lot of anger right now directed towards the Israeli government. Okay, it's the government. This article is saying Israelis, just citizens of Israel. It's not saying the IDF. It's not saying the Israeli government. So the reality is, we don't know why they're taking those antidepressants, why it's suddenly an upsurge. There are a couple possible reasons. One is the information that they're fed. A lot of people in Israel do not know what's happening just over on the other side of that border. They don't know. They've been fed misinformation, and they have been terrorized by their own government into thinking that they need to seek out bomb shelters, that their life is about to come to an immediate end. There is a large part of that population that is stuck in that mind frame. Could you blame them for being upset if that is what they truly believe, because that is the only information that they've been sold by the government they're supposed to trust? Also, there's going to be people that know what's happening and feel helpless to do anything about it. Watching the Majority Report, I remember somebody calling in and they're part of he's a Jewish person that was living in the West Bank, and just, the fear of speaking out and what that would mean. And there's lots of Jewish people in Israel that are faced with that right now. They see the horror unfolding, but there's nothing that they can do. They feel helpless to do anything about it because they know they risk imprisonment or backlash from their community and things of that sort. So this is just a reminder to people that when we see these headlines, when we see everything going around like this, that sometimes it's best to just take a moment and remember There's nuance to every article. There's nuance to every story. Don't jump to conclusions necessarily, because there's no comparable way to say like the people in Israel are suffering compared to the people in Gaza. That's not comparable. It's not. But there are still people in Israel suffering for very valid reasons. And to just dismiss them offhandedly because they are in Israel doesn't help the overall cause. So, there. Did I make you feel better or bad? I don't know. It is just something to keep in mind. It's important not to paint all Israelis under the same brush. And I'm worried the longer this goes on, the more that's going to happen. It's the Israeli government, it's the IDF, and the Zionists that are responsible for what is happening in Gaza. Okay, but speaking of how horrible it is over in Gaza, I think it worked last time when I was showing Canadian news videos where I pause it and it doesn't get me in trouble, because Canadian news coverage can be a little bit quirky about, allowing people to use it in fair use. So I have this here. So I'm just going to pause it quite regularly and try to add stuff to it. And I'll speed it up a bit too. It's only a 6-minute clip, but it's very devastating. And it's from 5 days ago, which, it feels like an eternity. It's important to hear about what's happening there. And here we have a trauma surgeon returns from Gaza hospital saying you can hear the bombing. So this is somebody who was there experiencing it firsthand, coming back to Canada.
Now on what's happening inside Gaza, Dr. Anas Al-Qassem is a Canadian trauma surgeon, recently returned from a trip to provide medical help in the territory. Thank you for coming and joining me in studio. It's nice to have you here.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So CBC News has not been inside Gaza, but you have been. Would you describe?
Yeah, I wonder why that is. Why is it none of the outside reporters, like Canadian reporters, American reporters, why is it none of them are in Gaza reporting on what's happening? Freedom of the press and all that. Yeah.
For me, what is the hospital situation like there that you were dealing with?
Well, it doesn't look like any hospital in Canada, unfortunately. The minute you reach the hospital, we were working in 2 hospitals in Khan Yunis, that's south of Gaza. You find thousands of refugees taking the vicinities of the hospital as refugees. They think it's a little bit safer than being in the tents outside. Nothing is really safe in Gaza Strip, to be honest with you. But thousands of refugees wounded on the mattresses, on the floor, in the entrance, no beds, because the capacity is about 500 and there are more than 1,500 wounded in one hospital.
That's of the hospitals that are left. As many of you already know, a lot of the hospitals have already been destroyed in bombing by the IDF.
And you hear and see that danger all around you?
Unfortunately, you hear the sounds of the bombing, the tanks, the airstrikes, the drones on top of you almost 24 hours. But the minute you get into the hospital, that's what we came for as trauma surgeons. You feel more comfortable because we came to help our colleagues of surgeons, physicians, and nurses that have been working for almost 90 days in Gaza, tirelessly day and night.
And
I can't imagine, like, the amount of focus and control you need to do to be able to work on patients while you're hearing bombs going off near you. Just a sec, folks. I'm going to be adding an image. Add existing. Just in case things get graphic, I have, where is it? Oh, there we go. Yeah, just in case things get graphic, I have this little thing that I've put together like that so that I can cover it up. And I don't know if it's about to get graphic, so I'm just going to leave it up for a second.
Working under such difficult circumstances as well, something that you've said really stuck with me, and that's that you became an arbiter of between death and life. Talk to us a little bit about the devastating choices that doctors like yourself are having to make in Gaza.
That's so true. I mean, in Canada, even like in a bigger trauma center like St. Mike Hospital or the General Hospital in Hamilton, if you receive maybe 2 gunshots, that's probably the max what you're going to get in a tough day. But imagine that you receive 15 injuries at once. 50% of them, I was calculating, probably 7, 8 children at once, with all kind of injuries, head, chest, abdomen, and lower extremities. And one patient doesn't only take one surgeon. It might actually need 3 or 4 surgeons working on one body. And we're only 6 surgeons, imagine that. So we had to make very difficult decision in order to save some lives, and we had to keep some, aside because we don't have the capacity to deal with all these kind of injuries and casualties at once.
I'm sure.
And they're losing medical staff all the time. They're out of supplies, they're out of resources. I can't imagine like the psychic toll this is taking on everyone there. Like even the people who aren't physically harmed. You don't come away from this intact. There's going to be a part of your psyche, a part of your soul, a part of your conscience that is just completely missing after this. The amount of harm this does, like to all the people who are in Gaza and just the everyday experience of it, the PTSD that they're going to be suffering, the amount of help that they're going to need when this is done. Hopefully this will be, yeah, I would love for it to be over tomorrow. I would love for it to have never started. It's going to be a monumentous task to help the people of Gaza when all of this is over.
So much of this is sticking with you, but are there any stories of people that you were able to help save, perhaps, that are kind of keeping you up?
We were lucky to have great surgeons, as I said, in this trip, 2 from Canada and 6 from US. One thoracic surgeon from Toronto, he was with me, and we had an 8-year-old child who, unfortunately, he was moved from northern Gaza to South Gaza, and his family told me that they rented a small house of some few houses left behind in Rafah area in South Gaza. They were hit by an airstrike. There was a shrapnel going through the upper chest, and the CAT scan showed that this is sitting in the pericardium, the membrane around the heart. So I communicated with some top surgeons that I trained with in the Syrian war from Britain, and they told me you have to go in immediately. So we made a decision that we have to go in with that thoracic surgeon. We evacuated a huge amount of blood from around the heart. We took the shrapnel out, and we saved this life. Some children we were able to save, but many.
Again, this is something where it's like, you have to take your wins when you can get it. And you're so happy, okay, this one child was saved. And he's about to say when so many aren't saved type thing. But it's not like that child is out of danger. It's not like that child won't endure another attack, another bombing, more injuries. It needs to stop. Like just completely stop. Because especially if you've already suffered some injuries, your body can only handle so much before, infection takes hold, your immune system is shot. Like, they don't have the medical supplies that they need. There are some horrific stories out there right now of like amputations on children without anesthesia. And it's unimaginable that the world is sitting by and allowing this to happen.
We could not.
You just mentioned the Syrian war, and I'm curious because I know that you've done work in other conflict zones as well. How does what you saw in Gaza compare to what you've dealt with elsewhere?
I think the 2 differences are that the Gaza is highly populated area, 2.2 million population, 10 by 40 kilometers, with ongoing bombardment, airstrikes day and night. And therefore, we have seen a lot of casualties and death in the Gaza war. Loss of children, as I said, almost 10,000 children died so far or killed because of the airstrikes. That makes it really different than the Syrian war within very short time. We're talking about 3 months. And the other thing, unfortunately, these people have been under occupation. I heard from them since 1967. So they have lack of medical supplies. The infrastructure is not well maintained to start with. The hospitals not very advanced to start with. And and now they're being hit. The hospitals are out of service. They don't have enough supplies, a lack of medical staff. And the most difficult thing is that if you cannot deal with the injury, you don't have the luxury to be able to transfer this to another country or neighbor country. You have to deal with what you have in terms of the resources. That makes it quite difficult.
When you mentioned that 8-year-old who you were able to help, and I know that you're also a father of 5 children yourself, what is it like seeing the suffering that children in particular are going through?
That's one of the motivation, to be honest with you, that makes me go to war zones because we're living very comfortable life, luxury life, and we have everything, all kind of services around us. When I go there, what really strikes me are the children who are, left behind with no food, no water, no electricity. The temperature is down to 5 degrees at night, and they're living in tents, in the plastic.
For those of you who don't know degrees Celsius, 5 degrees is just slightly above freezing. 0 degrees Celsius is our freezing mark. So 5 degrees is just slightly above that. I know it's cold in Fahrenheit as well, but I just want to give people context.
Tents, imagine that. So I feel that treating and saving one child at a time is just like a big reward for me as a surgeon coming from Canada.
Absolutely. Well, it's incredible work, what you've just gone and done, and I appreciate you coming back and telling us all about it.
Thank you so much for having me.
Dr. Anas Al-Qassam joining us in studio.
Yeah, something. Let's go up to this. It's like I just also want to make note that they often say, as somebody with children, and you see this and it's horrible, you don't need to have children to recognize how horrible that is. You don't. I personally don't even particularly like kids, and I can see how horrible this is and how monstrous this is. You shouldn't have to be able to personally relate to the situation in order to understand how wrong all of this is that's happening over there. Let's see. Let's go here. So this reporter here has lost so much of his family. Like, they've been murdered by the IDF. And yet he still has the strength to go to work. And this is important because it's like the last, video showed, we aren't getting outside reporters into there. Canada isn't, the CBC isn't having reporters over there for many reasons. One is funding cuts. Also, it's too dangerous and Israel won't allow it. So we rely heavily on the reporters that are on ground in there, but they are targets of the IDF. Over 100 reporters have already been killed. Reporters, journalists. So you are taking that extra risk by reporting on what's happening there. And this man has already suffered so much, and yet he's still doing his job. So I'm going to read the subtitles because he's speaking in Arabic. So.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
Actually, let's just bring down the volume a bit. There we go. So peace, mercy, and blessing of Allah be on you.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
First of all, I would like to convey to you my greetings. Respect and appreciation to everyone who asked about us, to everyone who sympathizes with us, to everyone with solidarity with us. In many ways, and in all the feelings have reached me. On the contrary, it is a medal of honor and is also one of the most important things that help me and strengthens me to continue on this path. It is true that every pain is very great, and the pain is greater, and the price was very, very high. Hamas was my everything, and not a piece of me. So he's talking about, I believe that was his son. I might have pronounced the name wrong. It's not. So he's talking about his son, not Hamas, the organization. He was my breath and my soul. And it came after I lost my wife, my son Muhammad, Ishman, Adam, my relatives,
زميلي سامر.
my colleague Samir.
لكن بالتأكيد
But of course, this
هذا
price
الثمن وهذا الوجع
and all
لن
its pain will
يثنينا
not stop us
عن
from
مواصلة
continuing the
الطريق.
road.
أكيد
Of course, this is difficult
هذا
matter
أمر
and
صعب وليس
not
سهل.
easy.
ولكن
But as
كما
we said,
قلنا
we will not
لن نتردد
hesitate even for a
ولو
moment,
للحظة واحدة
and we
ولن
will not
نتوقف
hesitate for a moment,
للحظة واحدة طالما أننا
as long
على
as we
قيد
are
الحياة
alive, and as long as we are
وطالما
able
أننا
to
قادرون على
perform
أداء
this
هذا
duty.
الواجب فنحن
We will do
سنقوم
so without
بذلك دون
hesitation
تردد.
because it is a
فهي
noble, holy,
رسالة
and
إنسانية
humanitarian message,
نبيلة مقدسة
which
كفلتها
is
كل
sanctified by
القوانين
all international
والمواثيق الدولية
humanitarian laws and agreements.
والإنسانية ولذلك
That's why we're going
نحن
through it.
معون وأيضا
And
لأن
also
من
because
استشهدوا
those
وسفحت
who were
دماؤهم
martyred
ابتداء من
and who
حمزة
shed blood starting
وأمه
from
وأخيه
his son and his mother and his brother and
هشام
Shem.
ضحوا
They
بكثير
sacrificed a
بأعز
lot
ما
with the
يملكون
greatest
حتى
so that I
أستمر
continue
أنا
on
على
this
هذا
path.
الطريق وبالتالي كان لزاما علي
And therefore it
أن
was
أكون
necessary for me
وفيا
to
بالحد
be
الأدنى
faithful to the minimum
وأستمر.
to continue.
بارك الله فيكم.
May Allah bless you and may Allah reward you. Well, just absolute bravery and strength. These are the heroes of the moment. Yeah, hopefully these are the people who will be remembered for their courageous acts when all of this is over. It is just, again, it is so horrendous. I can't imagine what this person is going through. Okay, so we're still going to talk about what's happening there. We're going to switch over to the case going to the ICJ. But before we do that, I'm just going to check the sandbox. Let's see. I know, Christy Zed. I know what you're a fan of. Germ, this is also sad. 24,000 now. I don't know if it's reached that, but it's inevitable that it's going to reach much, much higher than that. And again, this is just of the bodies they've counted. It doesn't include, there's so many people under the rubble that are not accounted for who have passed away. The estimates are much, much higher as to the actual loss of life. Christy said, I'm in New York getting slammed with another storm, supposed to get like 3 feet of snow and 60-mile-per-hour wind. Wish me luck. Good luck. Yeah, we're supposed to be getting it bad here too, but I find we're in this funny little nook where we miss a lot of the major storms. So I'm not too worried. Okay. Laura 4, nice screen cover all but leaves just enough shadow. Yeah, so I was switching back and forth because if there's anything kind of bloody on screen, I need to cover that up for YouTube regulations. Also, I don't think people need to see it. You know, there's enough of it that we accidentally come across online all the time anyway, that I don't want to add to visual graphic violence. If possible, I'll try to cover it when I see it happening. So I made those, they're fairly simple to make if you know anything about Photoshop, to bring over to here so that I can at least blur it out. I can't blur it. It's a faded white image type thing. Lynn, thank you. Getting the video restricted won't help anyone learn anything or consider perspective. Nope, thanks, Sandy. I think in Fahrenheit. Yeah, I know. A lot of my viewers are American. Howdy, eh? Many doctors, this guy's life is an awful tale. Yeah, I just. I would imagine, like, I can't imagine, but I would imagine he's in autopilot, like just a certain level of shock to have lost so much already. And then there was one image of his daughter, you know, just pleading with him and stuff. And I just, yeah. Uh, oh, thank you so much, person of Boogie, for the $2. I really appreciate it. And you say I'm poor, but have a coffee on me. Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate it. I really do. I know times are tough for a lot of people. So please don't send super chats unless it's something that you don't have to put any sacrifice into yourself. I I do super appreciate it. I hate the thought of people going without just to help me out. Okay, so we're going to start getting into the it's ICJ or IJC or ICJ. ICJ, the International Court of Justice, and what's happening there and some of the biases that are happening. So for those of you who don't know, South Africa has more or less accused Israel of perpetrating a genocide, and they've taken them to the International Court of Justice. There is a lot of confusion as to what this means, but luckily I think I found a couple of videos that will really help people understand what this means, where this is going to go, but also some of the biases. And again, this is why I don't necessarily blame the people in Israel, the citizens, for not knowing what's happening because of the biases of their government, and that a lot of them are in fear right now because their government keeps on telling them that there's, you know, these hordes of Palestinians across the border that are just trying to break free and murder all of you. Oh no. And it's so hard when you're supposed to trust your government and they send you messages like that. But the mainstream media also plays a huge role in informing the public. And so when you have a mainstream media that's following suit to whatever the establishment government is at the time, you have a lot of misinformed people or people who aren't informed at all about what is happening. And so it's easy for us who are, you know, engaged politically online. We know what's happening. But to the average person out there, if you start talking about this, they're going to look at you like, what are you going on about? And this is part of the reason why. So Mohammed is sharing on Twitter, I cannot find the International Court of Justice hearing on CNN, BBC, Channel 4, Fox News, MSNBC, CNBC, CBS, NBC, I-24, DW, Sky News, or any mainstream US EU TV channel. Only Al Jazeera English so far. What explains this unprecedented campaign of disinformation by omission? Yeah. That is pretty disheartening. Because to us, it seems obvious, like, oh, this is happening. We know it's happening. But I'm pretty sure if I call up my sister and start talking to her about this, she'll have no clue what's going on. And it seems so bizarre that there could be a genocide happening right now, and yet so much of the world is asleep to what's happening. And I say it's so bizarre, but that's only because I'm an adult now and I can see it. Because when the horrors were unfolding in Rwanda, the vast majority of the world didn't know what was happening at the time. They weren't engaged, they weren't plugged in. And the same with, I'm pretty sure there's lots of people who don't know about, I'm so bad with names, the people escaping Myanmar, Burma. They were under attack by the Buddhists. A certain kind of Muslim people were under attack by the Buddhists and I can't remember if it's now called Myanmar or Burma. And I'm horrible with names. Because I mentioned it, I want to look it up so that I'm giving you guys accurate information. The Rohingya, that's it. There's a good chance a lot of you don't know about this, the Rohingya genocide. And this was just, October 2016 to 2017. Everything that happened there, a lot of them, I think it's still 3 million people, are in the world's largest refugee camp. It's called the Cox's Bazar. Just the horrors that they went through. So can we really be shocked that there's going to be a lot of people, especially in Western areas, that have no clue what's happening, really? They might hear tidbits of information here and there, but they don't know the scope of what's happening. Especially if they aren't even seeing what's happening at the ICJ. And this can lead to problems later on, because if this actually goes through and it's not influenced by politics, this is a clear-cut case of genocide. And so if they're found guilty of this and that gets blasted over the news, a lot of people are going to be like, where's this coming from? This is out of the blue. Like they're labeling everything as genocide now, on and on and on, because they haven't seen the lead up to it. They haven't seen the evidence of what's causing it. Actually, I think I wanted to go to this one next. And Joy Henderson on Twitter was saying, we are truly in a despicable timeline, when she points out that she quote tweets somebody pointing out Johnny Depp and Amber Heard's trial received more coverage than the charges brought against Israel today at the IGC for committing genocide. That is where Western culture is at. It is a sad statement of our media, of what people are more interested in hearing. But it's easier, it's easier to just digest these trials. And a lot of that trial too was covered very incorrectly as well. And a lot of misinformation was sent out about that. It's so hard to know what's real anymore, with so much news being fake, so much being left out. But here we have some statements that happened during the ICJ. So Breakthrough News was tweeting out, the extraordinary features of this case is how open Israeli officials are about their genocidal intent. South Africa legal scholar, I really will not have any idea how to pronounce his name, presenting at The Hague, says the evidence for genocide is incontrovertible.
Minister of Defense.
Oh, that's loud. Ow.
The Minister of National Security. The Minister of there is an extraordinary feature in this case that Israel's political leaders, military commanders, and persons holding official positions have systematically and in explicit terms declared their genocidal intent. And these statements are then repeated by soldiers on the ground in Gaza as they engage in the destruction of Palestinians and the physical infrastructure of Gaza. Many propagators of grave atrocities have protested that they were misunderstood, that they did not mean what they said, and that their own words were taken out of context. What state would admit to a genocidal intent? Yet, the distinctive feature of this case has not been the silence as such, but the reiteration and repetition of genocidal speech throughout every sphere of state in Israel. We remind the court of the identity and authority of the genocidal inciters: the Prime Minister, the President, the Minister of Defense.
We've seen a lot of these people refer to Palestinian as human animals, saying that Gaza needs to be turned into a parking lot, saying that there's no innocent people in Gaza, that they're all Hamas, they're all combatants. These are being done by top officials using this genocidal rhetoric. It's clear, it's online, like it's there for everyone to see.
The Minister of National Security, the Minister of Energy and Infrastructure, members of the Knesset, senior army officials, and foot soldiers. Genocidal utterances are therefore not out in the fringes. They are embodied in state policy. The intent to destroy is plainly understood by soldiers on the ground. It is also fully understood by some within the Israeli society, with the government facing criticism for allowing in any aid to Gaza on the basis that it is recanting on its promise to starve Palestinians. Any suggestion that Israeli officials did not mean what they said or were not fully understood by soldiers and civilians alike to mean what they said should be rejected by this court. The evidence of genocidal intent is not only chilling, it is also overwhelming and incontrovertible.
Yeah. The amount of bombs that they're sending over there, the way that they're leveling the cities, the buildings, the schools, the hospital, the way that they've told millions of people to relocate. You can't look at that objectively and not see it for what it is. Like they're saying, oh yeah, you know, the Palestinians will be able to go back once we've rooted out Hamas and that sort of thing. But there's nothing for them to go back to. It's all rubble. And right now, what I would like the IDF and the Israeli government to do is prove that Hamas still exists within Gaza. That, like, I'm not talking about just, you know, the foot soldiers of Hamas, but the people who run Hamas, are they actually still in Gaza? Because a couple of the leaders that they found were in Lebanon that they managed to assassinate. So is the functioning head of Hamas even in Gaza anymore? What justification could they possibly have for killing tens of thousands of civilians, children, babies, of wiping out entire neighborhoods, of starving them, of shutting off their water and their electricity? There's no way you can look at this objectively and not see it for what it is. It just means there's a lot of non-objective people in the world. So Mehdi Hassan was also tweeted out on average. So this is a statement that she'll read from the very powerful South African ICJ closing statement. Ireland is a nation that is going to bat with South Africa on their case against Israel. So let's put it there.
On the basis of the current figures, on average, 247 Palestinians are being killed and are at risk of being killed each day, many of them literally blown to pieces. They include 48 mothers each day, 2 every hour, and over 117 children each day, leading UNICEF to call Israel's actions a war on children. On current rates which show no sign of abating, each day, over 3 medics, 2 teachers, more than 1 United Nations employee, and more than 1 journalist will be killed, many while at work, or in what appear to be targeted attacks on their family homes or where they are sheltering. The risk of famine will increase each day. Each day, an average of 629 people will be wounded, some multiple times over, as they move from place to place, desperately seeking sanctuary. Each day, over 10 Palestinian children will have 1 or both legs amputated, many without anaesthetic. Each day, on current rates, an average of 3,900 Palestinian homes will be damaged or destroyed. More mass graves will be dug. More cemeteries will be bulldozed and bombed, and corpses violently exhumed, denying even the dead any dignity or peace. Each day, ambulances, hospitals, and medics will continue to be attacked and killed. The first responders who have spent 3 months without international assistance, trying to dig families out of the rubble with their bare hands, will continue to be targeted. On current figures, 1 will be killed almost every second day, sometimes in attacks launched against those attending the scene to rescue the wounded. Each day, yet more desperate people will be forced to relocate from where they are sheltering, or will be bombed in places where they have been told to evacuate to. Entire multi-generational families will be obliterated, and yet more Palestinian children will become WCNSF, Wounded Child, No Surviving Family, the terrible new acronym born out of Israel's genocidal assault on the Palestinian population in Gaza.
Just horrible. In the description box below, I have linked to the entire trial, or the entire first day of the ICJ hearing. It's 2 hours, 40 minutes. I haven't watched it yet. I do intend to. It's important to stay informed on this. So it's linked below for people who want to go and see that. Also, Owen Jones saying Israel's defense will have to be, we haven't committed genocide, even though our ministers, politicians, army officials, soldiers, and media outlets keep either saying we want to commit genocide or we are committing genocide. It's like, we didn't say what we said. Yeah. He also has a summary. I haven't watched it yet. It's just over a half hour. I would imagine, based on the other stuff that he's put out there, it's pretty accurate and on point. So I plan on watching that as well. It's going to be a horrible watch list for me to get through. But it's important to stay informed on these issues and these topics and to hear them broken down in ways that you can understand. So I think I had... Sorry, let me just go to the main shop for a second. I don't know if I'm set up for the next one yet, or if I'm done with that topic, or if there was more. That one should go there. So the agent NDN just saying, counting down the minutes to the moment where we hear phrases like, we now submit into evidence the entire IDF TikTok. Yes, there is an abundance of evidence that the ICJ can see, that South Africa can present to the ICJ about the genocidal intent. And they are being very blatant on TikTok, the IDF, because they don't feel like there is going to be any consequences. A lot of them are celebrating what's happening, and it's disgusting. I just hope, well, we'll get into it in a moment, more about what this means and whatnot. Actually, did I think I got some of these tabs out of order. See, I'm trying my best to put them in order so that I actually know what I'm doing and can do things properly. Okay, sorry about this. Just getting them in order. Yeah. I thought it should have been that order. Oh well, now it's in the right order. At least I think it's in the right order. We'll find out. So just to see where Justin Trudeau is, so he tweeted this out January 10th. So to the members of the Jewish community who spoke with us today, thank you. Thank you for speaking so candidly about your pain, your anger, and your grief. I hear you. I want you to know that our commitment to you and to Israel as a Jewish and democratic state is unwavering. Yeah, he can so does he go to a mosque and then tweet this out about Muslim people, or does he go to a Palestinian community center and tweet this out about Palestinians? Like, does he do that? No, he's doing this for Israel. Because I have yet to see him really speak in solidarity with Palestinians as to what's happening to them. He could barely even, he hasn't really even uttered the word ceasefire. He almost did one time. It was quite hilarious. But even though the official stance is now ceasefire, I can't recall if Justin Trudeau himself has actually ever said publicly that there should be a ceasefire. But at least we have one federal party that's doing something about it, or not doing something, who's calling it out. So we have the Federal Green Party of Canada. So they say, they tweeted this out on the 9th. Today, we also joined the voices of many asking Canada to support South Africa's application to the ICJ regarding the situation in Gaza. Want to know more? See their statement below. So their statement starts off strong, gets really wishy-washy when it's like, yes, Hamas did bad things, blah, blah. And it's like, okay, this isn't about what Hamas did on October 7th. This is what Israel has been doing since October 8th. Like, it's two separate things. You don't need to say Hamas bad in everything you do. So you can freeze the screen right now if you want to read through all of it. And then that's the second part. It's a long statement, so I'm not going to read all of it. But it is now imperative that Canada commits to respecting and adhering to the upcoming ICJ decision and refrains from any attempt to interfere with the course of justice or influence in the decision. So what does all of this mean? Like, if they're found guilty in the ICJ, then what? And how is the ICJ different than the ICC? That's the International Criminal Court. Like, why isn't it there? Like, why isn't it being taken to the ICC? Why is it at the ICJ? There's some nuance explaining to go in there, but I just watched Beau of the Fifth Column released a video today that actually very nicely and succinctly distinguishes between the two. So we'll scooch over to him. And it starts about here. Again, I'm going to speed it up a bit. This is one of his longer videos. So, but he does a good job explaining the differences and what it means should they be found guilty at the ICJ.
Policy seems to be kind of ignoring or barely mentioning the South Africa case. Why? That's a much better question. That's one that's likely to get a response. Okay, so if you don't know what the South Africa case is, South Africa is taking Israel to the ICJ, not the ICC, two different entities, just so you know. If it was the ICC, everybody who talks about foreign policy would be talking about it, but the ICJ is a little bit different. International law, a lot of agencies responsible for it, they have a hard time really affecting the outcome that they want to. They have a hard time creating the outcome that they want to. Let me tell you what's going to happen with the ICJ case. Odds are South Africa is going to take Israel there. They are alleging genocide. The ICJ is probably going to issue a provisional or temporary order saying, hey, stop the fighting. And that temporary or provisional order is to stop the fighting long enough for the case to play out. Now, the case, we should see that wrap up, I don't know, sometime around 2027. Now, but they did.
So one thing that he does kind of make clear in this video is this is going to be a long process. The people in Gaza don't have this time to wait. So as much as we can applaud South Africa for taking Israel to the ICJ, it's going to be too late for so many people. Because then we might be talking about the genocide in past tense at that point. It is very troubling. Like, I'm glad South Africa is doing it, but more needs to be done to stop the bombardment now.
Issue that temporary order saying for the fighting to stop, right? So the fighting stops, of course. No, like we talked about in the first video, okay, you've made your order, now enforce it. The ICJ does not have an enforcement mechanism. From a foreign policy standpoint, when you're talking about actually affecting a stop to fighting, the ICJ is on par with a Twitter poll. That's why it's not getting a lot of coverage, because it really can't do anything. Does that mean that it is completely irrelevant? No, it doesn't. This is a cyclical conflict with unconventional aspects. As we have talked about numerous times on the channel, it is a PR campaign with violence. Somebody is about to get really bad PR as this case moves forward. Doesn't matter how it gets decided. So there's that. And it might shift the type of fighting a little bit. It may have some positive impacts in that way. But if you are hoping that this is just going to stop the fighting or make everything the way you want it to be, you're in for a rude awakening. The ICJ doesn't have a whole lot of power. But this case may do something else. It may inform an actual ICC case. The ICC does have an enforcement mechanism. They can arrest people. The way you need to look at the two, ICJ is for countries. ICC is for people. That's who the
And that's a good distinction. At least it helped me understand this a lot better.
defendants are. Now, as far as the ICC is concerned, my understanding is that they are investigating, and they're looking at three things to my knowledge, two of which are pretty much confirmed. The third, I am fairly certain that they are looking into, but I don't have a public statement about it. The first is what happened on October 7th, because while there might be a right to resistance or something like that, there are still rules. Odds are those rules were violated. It does seem that they are looking into the hindrance of aid. There's a term for it, but basically blocking aid is a crime. And there's been a kind of semi-public warning about that. And then the other thing that I think will probably come into play is that Israel is going to have to explain why every mosque, hospital, piece of civilian infrastructure that was hit, why it lost its protected status. There are rules. And a lot of buildings, they're protected. You're not allowed to hit them. And if you do, you have to show cause. Generally speaking, a tunnel isn't enough. You can talk to any American serviceman you know, service person that was that you know that was in Iraq. That's the one that people are waiting for. That those people who are looking at the ICJ case and they're like, yes, this is going to do what we want. It's not. The ICC one, when that comes about, that might do what you want. That's also probably at least a year away. International law is not evenly applied, and the wills of international law, they move slower than the special counsel's office. It's going to take a lot of time. Again, this is something that we discussed more than a month ago. So understand the ICJ case, it's not irrelevant. It's going to have impacts. But what I think a lot of people are hoping is going to occur, it's not in the cards. It's not even what that court does, really. Anyway, it's just a thought.
Yeah, so it's good to know where your expectations should be when it comes to what the ICJ can do. So it's going to do a lot. It's going to help inform people. But unfortunately, it isn't getting a lot of press attention. And the more people that know about what's happening in Gaza, the more likely more pressure would be put on to the government to do something. Because I still fall into the belief that if people knew what was going on, they would do something about it. That there's more good than bad out there. But people simply don't know what's happening because it's not getting covered in the press. Our politicians are barely talking about it, or they're being very biased when they're talking about it. But I believe that if most Americans and Canadians knew the extent of what's happening over there, that there'd be a lot more pushback, that there'd be a lot more pressure put on our governments to stop funding Israel, to stop sending them money, to stop sending them weapons. At least I like to hope that that's the case. So I still have one more aspect of Gaza. Well, it's attached to Gaza. It's the attack that just happened in Yemen to go over. But before we get into that part there, I'm just going to quickly check the sandbox. Miss Tree Moon, my thing is this. Israel knew Hamas was going to attack and did nothing, essentially willingly sacrificing their own people, in my opinion. So why does anyone think any of this is going to change their minds? There has been reporting that they were given a heads up. There's a good possibility they had no idea how bad it was actually going to be. It's one of the things that it's so hard to know exactly what happened, and we're not going to know for sure until this is over, until everything kind of settles as to all the individual atrocities within and what people knew when. It's why I still tell people, when you hear a particularly horrific story, a one-off story or something of that sort, take it with a huge grain of salt, because we don't know the details per se. Like, there's enough reporting, enough doctors, enough individuals reporting on what's happening to the children in the hospitals and the amputations and stuff, and we know the hospitals and stuff are down, but so that is very likely the case. But there was one about pregnant women being shot outside the hospital. than being run over by a bulldozer. And I still have a hard time thinking that was an accurate story, just given how it kept on escalating. It's like first they were pregnant, then they were holding a white flag, then they were in labor. It's the same with a lot of the stories that came out during October 7th with all the 40 beheaded babies and stuff. It's too outlandish. And a lot of this, we're not going to know the details for a long, long time, because it's going to have to be independent investigators that go in. Trusting for like 100% trusting anything either side says at this point is, they're releasing the information that will benefit them. So it's important to keep on taking all the information you hear with a huge grain of salt. But we can actually see the footage in the videos of leveled cities and stuff. So we do know, it's like, generally speaking, we do know there's a genocide happening. But it's the little stories, individual stories within that are harder to distinguish what is and isn't real. Chrissy said, Soul Life, I've seen so many videos of the IDF having the best time in the rubble of Palestinian homes. It's crazy. Then Grand Theft Auto bot, should somebody on their legal team download it before the IDF deletes it? Or maybe the IDF is so bold and brazen they won't bother. It's not the IDF account that is TikToking this out. It's individuals who are part of the IDF. So it's not something the IDF could just shut down if they wanted to. And so a lot of them are just soldiers. And yeah, they look like they're having a grand old time in the rubble. A lot of them. So the evidence is there, and I'm pretty sure any evidence needed collected, those videos are saved. They're all over the internet. They've been shared by other people. I would imagine the vast majority of them are saved on other people's servers, so they can't just delete them. But yeah, it's the individuals, it's just the attitude of the soldiers in the IDF that is really disgusting. MIDI doctors, they all got on the same page so quickly. It's like they all got the memo at once. Not entirely sure what that's for. I gotta remember to just stick to ones where I actually know the context. Some people unsure about Beau of the Fifth Column. It is, you can agree with some of the things he says and not agree with other things he says. This strikes me as being accurate in what he says for this instance. Just like there's things coming out of TYT that I can agree with and stuff that I would not agree with. Unfortunately, the stuff that I don't agree with has set me off from them completely. So it is, you're not always going to agree with everyone all the time. I just found that this was a very beneficial, or it benefited me to just hear it broken down like this, like what the ICJ is and what the ICC is and how they actually interplay. And if I find it beneficial, then I think other people might find it beneficial. MIDI doctors, genocide is an absolute crime. It is, yeah. It's just, I hope we can put more pressure on the governments to do something before we have to wait for these cases in the courts to go through, because the people in Gaza don't have that time to wait. Ah, hi Dan. Glad you could make it out to one of my live streams. I'm very rambly and I'm looking over at the chat, so sometimes they get very quiet. Rambly and quiet at the same time. Nice for you to come out. You probably see a lot of your chatters in my chat, in my sandbox. I call it a sandbox, the chat, because you know my name is Sandy and this is Left of the Box. So I'm calling it the sandbox. Aren't I clever? Kelly Bach, on a positive note, I visited Sandy's art page and wow, great artist she is. Thank you. I really appreciate that. Dan from the internet, if the IDF objected to the videos, they could ban it at any time. It's a military, they take orders. Yeah, I'm pretty sure they could do that if they wanted to. But, you know, they feel invincible right now. They feel untouchable, like nobody can do anything to them because so far they're still receiving an abundant amount of support from, you know, Canada and the United States and other Western countries. Like Germany is going to bat for Israel, which is just, there's layers of issues with that. Okay. So the other part of all of these shenanigans is there was recently the United States did a bombing in Yemen, which is related but not related to what's happening. We'll get into it. So from The Intercept, Biden's strikes in Yemen are unconstitutional. Bipartisan member of Congress say the attacks against the Iran-backed Houthis stoked fear the U.S. involvement in a regional conflagration. Sure. The US and the UK led a series of airstrikes in Yemen on Thursday evening, setting off alarms globally about how the attacks play into smoldering regional risk of conflict, including a stream of questions from Congress about whether Joe Biden was legally authorized to conduct the strikes at all. In a statement, Biden said, "Today, at my direction, the US military forces, together with the United Kingdom and with support from Australia, Bahrain, and Canada, and the Netherlands successfully conducted strikes against a number of targets in Yemen used by the Houthi rebels endanger freedom of navigation in one of the world's most vital waterways." Yemen's Houthis responded to Israel's bombardment of the Gaza Strip by attacking and blocking commercial ships in the Red Sea destined for or originating from Israeli ports. The attack led to near total shutdown of Israel's port in recent weeks. With Israel being brought before the International Court of Justice in The Hague, Netherlands, for allegedly committing genocide against the Palestinians in Gaza, the Houthi blockade of Israeli trade in the Red Sea could gain newfound global legitimacy. I don't think that's going to happen. The strikes in Yemen more directly involve the U.S. in Israel's war against Hamas with Hezbollah, which, like the Houthis, are backed by Iran. Biden justified the strikes as defensive action, a nod to the issue of presidential powers and so on and so forth. Progressives led the way in questioning, you know, the attack that Biden's doing, and it's like, you shouldn't have done that. And I'm going to bypass all of the was he allowed to do it or not, because it is pretty hypocritical what he did. For one thing, because he chided Donald Trump for doing something similar when he was in power. I'll get to that tweet in just a second. And then he went and did it himself. And then there's a whole bunch of tweets of lefties saying, yeah, that wasn't a good call. You should have, you know, Congress, blah, you know, we're here for a reason. And then a whole bunch. At the same time, several members of Congress expressed strong support for the strikes as part of a broader push by Republicans for a military confrontation with Iran. Some Republicans said the attack was justified. These strikes are necessary, responsive, and proportionate, not escalatory. Doubtful. Doubtful. President Biden is right to act. He said the Houthis attack imperil the global economy. Okay, that sounds right. Yeah. And increase the risk of wider war. Minimizing the risk of regional conflict is the utmost priority. Global economy, yeah. When you strike shipping lanes, it tends to get attention of larger nations. And to say that these attacks are proportionate, nah, I wouldn't say so. You know, if a child were to come up to me and hit me and then I deck them in the face and knock them on their ass, that's not a proportional response. Darn it, my light just went out. I didn't charge it long enough. Hate when that happens. Yeah, the way the United States came down is a far cry from proportionate, I would say. 5 people were apparently killed in it. Oh my God. This article here that I was reading from that nobody saw on the screen. I need to have better visual cues to know that I just totally went through this without anyone actually seeing what I was referring to. Darn it. I'm not going to reread all of that. I read it. You guys heard it. Here's the article. I believe I linked to this below as well, The Intercept, in the description box. If not, I will do that after the stream so that people can read it for themselves. But yeah, I was referring to this, all that stuff that I just said. Anyway, Ryan Grimm also said, so Joe Biden from January 6, 2020 tweeted out, "Let's be clear, Donald Trump does not have the authority to take us into war with Iran without congressional approval. A president should never take this nation to war without the informed consent of the American people." And he says, unless global shipping is delayed. Yeah. And yeah, so again, I'm not going to get into the nuance of the American political system of whether he should have had congressional approval. He said, well, I told Congress I was going to do it. You know, the whole better to apologize later than ask for permission type thing. Because that, I think, is just a moot point to the bigger picture. And before I kind of paint that bigger picture, I just want to say Canada's role in this, because we did have a role in this. Oops, there we go. Canada helped plan US-UK attacks on Houthi and Yemen Defense Department. Canada Armed Forces members provided planning support for the US-led attack on Houthi positions in Yemen, but the Defense Department said Friday that no Canadian assets were involved, so we helped plan it. The US said the UK attacked more than 60 targets at 16 sites used by the Iran-backed group. Joint statement by the White House said Canada, the Netherlands, Bahrain, and Australia provided supports for the strike, which the Houthis said killed at least 5 people and wounded 6. I'm just trying to see. Asked why Canada's involvement was limited to planning, Trudeau said, "We don't have the particular assets in the region." A Defense Department spokesperson said in December the Allies were asked to contribute ships, planes, and staff, but did not explain why Canada has not provided military assets to the operation. Opposition leader Pierre Poilievre said in a Friday press conference of his own that he agrees the strikes were necessary to counter the threat posed by the Houthis. It doesn't surprise me at all that the Conservatives would be in line with, like, oh, they attacked our economy shipping lanes, bombed them. So the territory controlled by the Houthis in Yemen is home to around 2/3 of its 34 million people. War began in the country after the rebel-sized group seized the capital, Sana'a, in 2014. A Saudi-led coalition intervened to restore the exiled government to power, leading to years of proxy war as Saudi Arabia and Iran battled for control over the Arab world's poorest country. More than 150,000 people have been killed and hundreds of thousands more have died from starvation and disease. The vast majority of the country is considered food insecure by the World Program. You see, this is where we start getting into a little bit more of, oh, and then we go down here. Biden said Thursday's strikes, the first military action taken by the coalition, came after attempts at diplomatic negotiation. It came a week after the White House said, and partner nations warned the Houthis to end the attacks. The governments of Australia, Bahrain, Canada, Denmark, Germany, Netherlands, New Zealand, and South Korea joined the US and the UK in issuing statements Wednesday saying that while the aim is to de-escalate tensions, because, bombs are really good at de-escalation, and restore stability in the Red Sea, the Allies won't hesitate to defend the lives and protect commerce. Protect commerce? It's all about protecting that property in the critical waterway. About 12% of the world's trade typically passes through the waterway that separates Africa and the Arabian Peninsula, including oil, natural gas, grain, and everything from toys to electronics. Huh. Yeah, it's starting to seem less about anything that's happening in Gaza. Let's just go a little bit more. Trudeau, Poliev back U.S. strike against Houthis in Yemen. Let's get some volume on this.
He served as a defense minister, foreign affairs minister in the conservative government of
That's
Stephen
not the one I wanted.
Also.
Just a second.
For more content.
I had a video of Justin Trudeau talking, and now I can't seem to find it. Is it this one? Sorry about this, folks. One of these days, I'm actually going to get good at this. No, just, why isn't it playing this one? I want to... There we go. It changed the videos on me. Silly. There we go.
The strikes by Houthi militia on maritime traffic, on civilian and commercial vessels, are absolutely unacceptable. They're contrary to international law. They're contrary to the UN Charter. They go against very specific UN Security Council resolutions ensuring protection of traffic in the Red Sea and in the region. That's why a number of international actors, including Canada, were deeply concerned by these continued attacks on commercial and civilian traffic. The United States and the United Kingdom have engaged in precision strikes to degrade the Houthis' capacity to continue to violate international law, the UN Charter, and go against very specific UN Security Council resolutions. And we have been there in a supportive role. There are Canadian military involved in some of the Canadian military members involved in some of the planning, but we did not have any operational assets involved in the precision strikes.
Yeah. The thing is that what's been happening in Yemen has been going on for a long time. If we go over to democracy now and you type Yemen into the search bar there, we can see hell on earth. Yemen children starved to death as backed Saudi blockade devastates nation from 2 years ago. Yemen entered 7th year of US-backed Saudi-led war that caused the world's worst humanitarian crisis. Obama is killing Yemen. A Yemeni journalist speaks out after U.S.-backed bombing strikes funeral. And that was 7 years ago. Investigation. As U.S.-backed war in Yemen raged, UAE hired U.S. mercenaries to kill Yemeni leaders 5 years ago. Reports find U.S.-made bombs was used in airstrike on wedding in Yemen 4 years ago. PBS reports from Yemen as millions face starvation. American-made bombs are killing civilians 5 years ago. A coup in Yemen, Jeremy, yeah. So as you see, this has been going on for a long, long time. And every time you say you see US backed, you can assume that's also Canada. We tend to do everything the United States does, but politer. We also have our hands in this. We also sell weapons to Saudi Arabia. We also have, help out the Americans. Like every time you see an overseas conflict that involves the Americans, you rest assured Canada is also involved. And so a lot of people were worried, like, oh no, with the US bombing Yemen, it's going to be a regional war. But as you can plainly see, America's already done that. Plenty of times has already bombed Yemen, has already been involved with crimes against Yemen. And that hasn't led to war. The thing is that right now we're all very sensitive to what's happening in that region because it is a bit of a powder keg. But all I see are a bunch of excuses of nations doing what they want to do. So do I believe the Houthis are targeting these ships solely because of what's happening in Gaza? Not really. You see, I think the United States is doing what it wants to do and using what the Houthis has done as an excuse to do it. And the Houthis are doing what they want to do and is using what's happening in Gaza as an excuse to do it. Just like Israel is doing what it wants to do and is using what Hamas did as an excuse to do it. And Hamas was doing what it wanted to do with, the past decades and decades of being oppressed and disenfranchised and in the prison without water, electricity, dehumanized, imprisoned, murdered, and all that sort of stuff as an excuse to do what they want to do. It's a little bit unbalanced there, but it's all a chain of nations using atrocities other nations are doing as an excuse to do what they just want to do. It is like it is so it's I had this all in my head a lot smoother before this started. And then I'm just trying to remember if I said it right. So the Americans are doing what they and using, yeah. I think I said it right the way that I wanted to. It's all a chain of nations just excusing their actions by saying, well, they made us do it. And then you go back all the way to Hamas. That's the starting point of this current chain where you look at everything that they were already going through up to that point. And it wasn't based on one action. It was based on systemic abuse, starvation, lack of power, lack of movement, being in an open air prison for decades and decades, having their land taken away, being treated as subhuman. So do I think we're about to enter into World War III? No. No, I don't think so. This type of brutality has been going on for a long, long time. We're just a little bit more aware of it, a little bit more sensitive, a little bit more raw to it right now because of everything that's happening in Gaza. But I'm pretty sure the Houthis were just doing what they wanted to do and are using what's happening in Gaza as an excuse to do it. And then the United States was like, well, we wanted to do this, and now we have this as an excuse to do it. And Israel was like, well, we've been wanting to totally deconstruct and destroy Gaza, and well, Hamas did that, so now they have that excuse. It is just horrible chain of excuses. I do think it can get worse, you know. Like, I don't feel this is getting into World War III, but it's not something that can also be ruled out of hand either. Um, it can still escalate. It can still get a lot worse in the region there. And there is a tipping point. We're not near that tipping point right now, but there is a tipping point. And hopefully enough people come to their senses, because if nothing else, the Americans need to be aware that, you know, World War III would be so damaging to the economy. Like, just think, if they're worried about those shipping lines, just imagine what would happen if there's World War III, you know, getting all the different, you know, economic structures upended and stuff. And, you know, that whole capitalism that they're fighting to defend would just kind of go haywire. So if nothing else, there's a good chance that they would stop short of going into World War III solely for economic reasons. Like, and when I say economic, I mean more capitalistic reasons than anything else. Not because of people, no. Okay, let's check the sandbox. Because that is it for my kind of Gaza coverage stuff. Well, let's see, we're at 7:30. I need to start making these shorter because I have a whole bunch more news to go. Well, actually, I shortened it. I don't have a whole bunch more news to get through. So I do have a lot though. And I'm working out on balancing it. But let's check the sandbox before we completely switch subjects. Good for Gabby. Thanks for doing this important work, Sandy. Thank you. It helps when people come out and see me work. Chat's been busy. I'm having to scroll up a bit to kind of find where we left off. Vanessa Vanessa, Palestinian children being blown to bits. Biden, who cares? Houthis imposing a blockade on sea travel in their national waters to protest Israel. Biden, you can't hurt the economy. Yeah, it's interesting what they actually respond to. Interesting, but also very predictable. I guess I have to scroll up even further. Okay. I see where we are. Trying to find comments where I know the context and it's not part of a conversation happening within the sandbox. Lynn, Trudeau, we wanted to go harm humans in order to protect the economy, but unfortunately our game pieces were elsewhere. Yeah. Canada is usually helping the United States in ways that they don't declare as well when it comes to money and resources and intelligence. So it wouldn't surprise me if we were a little bit more involved than just what he said there. Even something as simple, like a lot of people don't know, is like, okay, so you have the drones, the United States drones targeting Yemen, but then the fuel might actually be coming from Canada. Like, it's all interconnected like that. So then in some aspect, Canada is also responsible for all the bombings that the United States did on Yemen, because we're supporting them by giving them the fuel type thing. Well, not giving, but selling them. Uh, person of Boogie. Is it just Boogie? Is that how you say it, Boogie? Yep, we helped starve Yemen's children. Yeah, we are in part responsible for that, and they're still going through it. Like, this isn't over. There's still hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of food insecure and starving people in Yemen. And it completely gets overlooked by the international media. Trying to see if there's any. Sorry, I do like reading your comments out loud. I'm just trying to find ones that that I know in context type thing. Yeah. Canada is not the nation it likes to portray to the rest of the world. We're not so polite. No, we're just as involved as the Americans are with everything. Like, we sell weapons to Israel and we send them money. We sell weapons to Saudi Arabia and we send them money. Like, we're just as involved as the United States, and that's why I say there has to be more cross-border solidarity when it comes to fighting these issues. Because let's say there's enough pressure put on the American government to stop selling weapons to Israel. You've done nothing except increase the profits for Canada, because then Canada would be able to sell more weapons to Israel. So it has to happen at the same time. Like, we have to get them to stop at the same time. Otherwise, the problem isn't solved. Oh, so let's see. I have a few more stories on the docket. Sounds so professional, on the docket. Is it time for the Sam Cedar look? I was asking people earlier in chat, should I keep this kind of professional look or do the Sam Cedar look where it's kind of like open a little bit? I don't have any chest hair to show you guys though. Or do I keep it more professional? Sam Cedar look or keep it more professional? You guys let me know in the chat, in the sandbox. Let me know. Do you want the Sam Cedar look or do you want me to keep it a little bit more buttoned up? I already know Looney Tunes and Christy Zed's opinion on this. Yeah. Some people are wanting the Sam Cedar look. Some people like the professional look. Yeah, we still have some more modest people in the sandbox. And just so you know, I'm comfortable in both, so you don't get to use that for a deciding factor. Yeah, people were suggesting I glue on chest hair if I'm going to do the Sam Cedar look. There's a different perspective. Carrie likes to be able to see the necklace. That's a good way of phrasing it. Yeah, Shade Dragon, you may not have the chest hair, but you have a different attributes. Sam Cedar never has a great necklace. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I need a chest wig for the Sam Cedar look, do I? Lynn, I don't know. I haven't seen Sam Cedar with purple eyeshadow, so who knows? He might look fantastic with it. I think we're getting more people wanting the Sam Cedar look now. So you can see the necklace. That's what it's about. You want to see the necklace. Because it's not like the Sam Cedar look ever distracts me when I'm watching Majority Report. Never. Mm-mm. No, I don't get distracted by those little things. Mm-mm. Yeah, and I don't even have the mic in the way. Not that I'm saying that he usually does. Anyway, why don't we get on with the stories? So, in the United States, things are still going to hell with a lot of different things. Queer news. I am very, very grateful I'm on this side of the border. It's just, uh, what is happening down there to the LGBTQ plus community is so disturbing. So disturbing. Um, Alejandro Carbello, I think is how you say her name. SB 197, a new bill in West Virginia, would classify transgender people as obscene matter and make their presence within 2,500 feet of a school a felony punishable up to 10 years in prison. So they're making it illegal to be transgender in West Virginia. And I heard somewhere that sex offenders usually have less clearance than that. They don't even need to be 2,500 feet away from a school. It's less than that. So obscene matter as defined by this group of characters of this code is prohibited in or within 2,500 feet of any public school, library, classroom, building, or other faculty under general supervision of the state board, including any public school building containing any of grades pre-kindergarten through 12, any public charter school building, any multi-county career technical education center building, and any building of the West Virginia schools for the deaf and blind. So pretty much everywhere, if you're going to give it that range of like 2,500 feet is, yeah. Prohibited displays shall include, but not limited to, any, I'm not going to say that out loud, transgender exposure, performances, or display to any minor. So walking in public would be displaying transgenderness to a minor, apparently. Go follow her if you're still on Twitter. She's, very important reporting. Both her and Erin Reed are really up to date with all of this stuff. And it's getting into an election season in the United States. This is going to get a lot worse. A lot worse before. Like, it is just, the idea of just being transgender is going to be obscene. They're finding every way possible to just make it illegal. Like in some states like Ohio, they've now made it so you need 3 different types of doctors to sign off on your medication for hormones, which means a lot of people who need that treatment won't be able to get it. And some people might forcibly be detransitioned because of it. They find workarounds to make it illegal to be transgender, or make it impossible to live that way. And that's just the starting point. If you're queer in any way whatsoever, a lot of people like me are being included in this. The bills are becoming more expansive. They're becoming more restrictive. They're including more and more people every time they do this, because at first it was just supposed to be about protecting the children, and now all of a sudden all these restrictions are about adults not being allowed to be transgender. Let's see, actually, I wanted to skip to this one. So, Erin, she has a lot of really good stuff here, but she tweeted out some things recently that's a little bit more on the lighter side that I kind of wanted to touch on, because with doom and gloom news like this, it's hard to stay positive. But Erin says, I want this for trans people. The way that Stonewall folks in the middle of one of the worst crackdowns of LGBTQ plus people in our nation's history stood in front of the building the next day, boarded up and smiled. Keep hope. They did. And she says, today was a hard day, but we will wake up tomorrow and do it all over again, and we won't stop because we can't. 20 years from now, we will look back on days like today and be proud of the world we made. Trans people have been around forever and always will be. Nights like tonight, I think about the people who, the day after the Stonewall riots, posed in front of the building smile. Police were arresting queer people left and right just for being queer, and they could still smile. Keep hope because it is what will fuel us. And for all the harm that's being pushed towards our way, it is important to remember we're a lot further than where we have been. We've gained a lot of ground. And the reason why Republicans are becoming more determined is because they know they're losing. They're losing it as a culture war issue. It's not a culture war issue, it's a human rights issue. But the public is becoming more accepting. Gen Z, 20% identify LGBTQ+. So the right knows that they're losing on these issues, which is why they're trying so hard to make it impossible. So it's important that we keep hope, we keep pushing, we keep fighting. Because, yeah, 20 years from now, we're going to be in a lot better place. It's hard to see how we're going to get through all of this, but we will. We will. We will overcome this. And then Erin Reed also tweeted out yesterday, dramatic scene unfolded in South Carolina during a gender-affirming care ban hearing. A Republican asked, "Where are the studies?" Incredulously, Philip Ford pulled out a large binder stating, "I have them right here. Subscribe to support her work." The hearing is on House Bill 4624, which would ban gender-affirming care for transgender youth, and which also targets adults, banning adult trans Medicaid coverage up to the age of 26. I detail everything in her article there. Darn it, I did have it, and then it went away. Oh, do we actually have a clip? That would be nice. I think. Let's see if this is a clip.
Good afternoon. How we doing?
Hey, doing well. How about you?
This is just to the chair. Can we ask for or against when we have speakers citing studies? Can we get that turned into the committee? That way we have it
I've
not
got it
only
right
for
here.
the record.
Yeah.
Got them all right here.
Are there any other questions? Very good. Thank
Are there any other questions? Big ass binder of studies saying, yeah, it's in the best interest that trans folks receive the medication and treatment that they should get. Yeah, I really love their work. If you can, follow them on Twitter, subscribe to their journalism. Both Erin and Alejandra do amazing reporting for queer issues in the United States, which is difficult. It's a very hostile place right now for LGBTQ plus folks. And to be so vocal about it and be part of that community, they're a target for hate, for harassment, for a lot worse. So I can't state enough how brave they are and how amazing they are at what they do. And it's because of people like them that we will get through all of this. We will. Okay. I think after this, it's all Canadian news. So let's check the sandbox. And then you'll get to see my fun little bumper. I don't know what it's called, that thing where I do, well, you'll see in a moment. Shade Dragon, Ohio's also writing a trans bill like that too. Yeah, Ohio is just absolutely, like, they found the bottom of the barrel and then they thought, you know what, we can do more, and then they kind of cut and chopped it up, and then they found that there was another barrel underneath, and now they're at the bottom of that barrel. Because at first you had the governor vetoing a bill that would deny trans children from playing on sports teams, and then that was overruled by the House, and then he put through a bill, that same governor put through a bill that's the 3 doctor rule type thing, that extensively, like, will detransition a lot of people because they can't get that type of coverage, to kicking transgender people off the ballots for elections there because of a name change. You know, they demand that people must use their dead names when they sign up to run an election, which the rules aren't even clear on that. Like, it's not stated anywhere, it's not obvious, and it doesn't, generally speaking, apply to people who are married and might have changed their surnames. It's odd how it only targets transgender people and not, people who got married. Grand Theft Autobot. Oh, by the way, I hear Florida banned the dictionary. I heard that. I don't know if it's true. That could be an exaggeration. I would hope it's an exaggeration. Shade Dragon, the thing is, they're treating trans identities as taking extreme sexual roleplay out of the bedroom because they can't contextualize it as anything else. It says more about conservatives than trans people. Yeah, it's not. Being transgender is not a sexual identity or a sexual activity. It is just who you are. It's your gender. You're just expressing your gender. I'm non-binary. It has nothing to do with my sexuality. Other than make it very difficult to use terms like bisexual, because what would that even mean to me? Like, can I be bisexual? So I'm either attracted to people, so I'm attracted to people with a gender and without a gender. Like, it's that's why I say pansexual. But it's a lot of it is how they were taught. A lot of it is society, media, the right wing influencers, and how they describe trans folks and things of that sort. But it's just a part of who you are. Just like the same thing used to be about gay couples. Like, oh, it's only about the sex. They just want the gay sex, and that's all it is. And it's like, no, they're in love. It's a relationship. It's a dynamic. It's who they are as people. The relationship isn't solely about sex. It's about who they want to spend their lives with, who they want to spend their time with, and all that sort of stuff. It says a lot about these, cisgendered, heterosexual, often white, often very religious men, that everything comes down to the sex. How is the sex? How is the sex happening? That's all they want to know. They just want to know the sex. It's all about the sex. It says a lot about them. Brendan Knoll, please explain how someone can trans someone else. Well, there is a way. Take away all their hormones, medications, you know, all the people who are on HRT, hormone replacement therapy. Then you forcibly detrans them. Not exactly what you were talking about, I understand, but this is something that will be done to trans folks, which would be no difference than pinning somebody down and forcing them to take hormones. I can't see the context, but everyone... Oh, I'll take a look at that power. Oh, Monope saying the power went out. It's still out right now? Wow. Oh, I had to take a little nap. The power went out this morning or last night, and time is real hard for me right now. Thanks, everyone. Yeah, well, I hope your power gets back on. Shade Dragon, during the Stonewall riots, people who were just walking by and were not even in the bar took part at some point too. People have always acknowledged the rights of others, even when it doesn't apply to. We had similar incidences here in Canada. There's names for it. I'm so bad with names. But history of raids on bathhouses. Oh, there we go. Oh my God, they called it Operation Soap. Yeah, here in Canada. Operation Soap was a raid by the Metropolitan Toronto Police against 4 gay bathhouses in Toronto, Ontario. Toronto, yeah. Canada, which took place February 5th, 1981. Nearly 300 men were arrested, the largest mass arrest in Canada since the 1970 October crisis, before the record was broken during the 2006 Stanley Cup playoff, of course. Although many gay bathhouses have previously been raided in Canada and other small raids followed, Operation Soap is considered a special turning point in the history of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender community in Canada. The raids and their aftermath are today widely considered to be the Canadian equivalent of the 1969 Stonewall riots in New York City. Mass protests and rallies were held denouncing the incident. These evolved into Toronto's current Pride Week, which is now one of the world's largest gay pride festivals and celebrates its 35th anniversary in 2015. Not much difference between the United States and Canada. But not too many people know about Operation Soap. I didn't know it was called that. It's kind of a ridiculous name. I just knew it as the bathhouse raids. But it's good for Canadians to know our history. Let's see. Oh, do we have a kitty wanting to come up on my lap? Hey, Abernathy, come on up. Whoa, he's such a beauty. Look at him. He's such a beautiful cat. You gotta sit down, sweetie, if you want to be on my lap. Okay, let's get back to it. And now that we're going to Canadian news, you get to do this.
Today in Canadian news.
he has his face planted right now, where I'm pretty sure a lot of you would like to have your face planted, because he sees the necklace and he wants to chew on it. Anyway, let's get back to the news. You silly goose. You silly goose. So, Toronto Star saying that Toronto Police Chief and Board Chair issues dire warnings Thursday about the city's proposed budget figure for the force, saying that falling 12 million support. Okay, I can say the sentence properly. Proposed budget figure for the force, saying that falling 12 million short of what police requested will pose a significant risk to our communities. Somebody says, that's a nice city you got there. Be a shame if something happened to it. But really, was the police chief that explicit with it? So proposed city budget, proposed unacceptable risks, Toronto police chief forewarns. Scroll down. Toronto police chief and board chair are issuing a dire warning that the proposed 12.6 million cut to the force's request budget will pose a significant risk to our communities, and claims that critics are dismissing as irresponsible fear-mongering. And I can't read much more because I'm not subscribed. But really, is he saying something really offhand here, really obscene, really, well, there's this other article that goes into much more detail that I can read on here. Let's see, can I make this bigger? From CP24, Toronto Police seeking 20 million budget increase. So you see, what all of this is about is the police on their board passed a budget which was 20 million increase from last year. However, the city, now run by Olivia Chow, says we're not going to increase it by that much. In fact, it's going to be 12 million short of what you requested. And so then the police chief is like, how dare you? So let's get into the article. The Toronto Police Service, TPS, is asking the city for nearly 1.2 billion net operating budget for 2024. So it's not like they're hurting for money here. 1.2 billion is what their current budget is. Toronto Police Chief Myron presented his budget proposal during Tuesday TPS board meeting, requesting 1.186 billion, a 20 million increase from the approved 2023 budget. It was approved by board members, sending it to the city's budget committee for consideration. So they have a lot of money, a lot of money. And keep in mind, Toronto, how big is Toronto? Toronto's population. Let's see. There we go. It's just under 3 million. So, yeah, see, population, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, Canada population last year, yeah, you can see right there in tiny little print, but it's just under 3 million. So for just under 3 million people, they need almost $1.2 billion to do their job properly. And you know, a lot of people who support the police in this will tell me I need to learn how to budget on $1,300 a month, with rent taking up 80% of that. I need to learn how to budget and cut costs and manage with that much money. But the police get 1.2 billion and they're whining that they can't increase it by another 20 million. This is a budget built on a history of fiscal responsibility. Needing that much to run a city of under 3 million, or just policing a city of under 3, that doesn't sound like fiscal responsibility to me. Fiscal responsibility and constraint that aims to build in sufficient resources required at a minimum, maintain degraded service levels, and attempt to address the delivery of adequate and effective policing service in the city of Toronto, the police chief wrote in his report. The chief noted that 2024 budget will be spent on increasing frontline resources to focus on emergency response time, augmenting investigation capacity for a timely closure of cases, and improving oversight and accountability through supervision. Keep in mind that what a lot of these police do is like destroy encampments and parks and harass and, traumatize the community. But, I guess they want more of that. The budget allows the service to continue the vitally important proactive policing programs, because we all need more police in the TTC to make sure people aren't getting onto the subway without paying, and build partnerships with other organizations with the goal of supporting safer communities. He also provided a breakdown of where the 307 new uniform officers will be deployed. That would probably be in the subway to make sure that people aren't, sleeping there or not paying to get on. About 170 of them will be allocated to emergency response, while 110 will be assigned to investigative roles. Hate crimes unit, provincial carjacking task force. Oh, that sounds kind of cool. And centralized fraud intake office. 10 will be deployed to digital evidence, blah, blah, blah. Okay. The chief says, yeah, the city's gotten bigger. Emergency response times has increased, and protecting and supporting the victims is increasingly in jeopardy. Well, what we need is to not have police go for mental health checks. We need to maybe spend money on having other professionals look after that sort of thing, and so that the police aren't so burdened with those tasks. This budget attempts to balance the needs of the community while maintaining the service-long history efforts towards financial affordability, he wrote. TPS also plans to add 102 new civilian roles to address workload growth, meet legislative requirements and organizational commitments, and to improve public safety outcomes. Of those, 60 will support case management, 20 will be technology roles, 15, okay, okay, so there's going to be a high level of retirements, blah, 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 all that sort of stuff. In his presentation, the police chief warned, oh, here we go. Here's what he said about, the reducing the budget here. So in his presentation, the police chief warned that reducing the budget could result in unacceptable risks, including the prospect of not delivering adequate and effective service required of the police. Okay, so that is sounding a little bit more threatening. I imagine he's just saying, we won't have the resources. I don't know how bad it gets. He added that the non-approval of the budget in whole or in part would lead to service adjustments that could see crime victims not being supported, risk of serious violent offenders escaping justice and being released back into the community, and justice systems being further undermined due to police not meeting legal requirements. Okay, so yeah, that does sound like you've got a nice city there. It'd be a shame if something happened to it. Wow, by saying you're not giving us 20 million extra, it's like, you know what? Those victims that you're so concerned about, not sure if we're going to be able to get to them. Just saying. It's your fault. Should we not help these victims because you didn't give us the full 20 million? Instead, you're only giving us, 8 million more on top of the $1.2 billion. TPS 2024 budget does not include the Toronto Police Service Parking Enforcement Unit, which is separately requesting a net operating budget of $51.3 million to enforce parking in Toronto. You need over 50 million to enforce parking in Toronto. Wow. Yeah, it does sound a little sus of the police chief saying, I'm just going to say, without that 20 million, crime victims not being supported, risk of serious violent offenders escaping justice and being released back into the community because, we just don't have the police on hand to make sure that they go where they're supposed to go. It's not on us if they get out. No, it's not like we can't work within our means. When I first went on Ontario Works, and my apartment was $650, but the max amount was $530, I was told I was living above my means. I think in this case, I don't feel bad in telling the police they're operating above their means if they can't do what they're supposed to do with the 1.2 billion they have. Just saying. You know, people like that police chief would probably just tell me I'm living above my means, but the police isn't operating above their, like, are you kidding me? That you need $1.2 billion to run a city of under 3 million and to threaten, you know, it does sound like a threat. Like it does sound like a threat, you know. Just saying, we might not be able to be there for you if you need us because you're 12 million shy of what we're asking for. Just saying that we currently have an inadequate police force. More Canadian shenanigans. FFS. Is there nothing Ford won't sell off to profit his pals? Do we have to spend our time protecting everything from him? Ford should be spending his time protecting people of Ontario who are homeless as a winter storm bears down 10,000 in his hometown alone. What is she talking about? What is going on? Breaking. John Leader, executive chairman of Staples. For those of you who don't know, Staples is an office supply store. Donated money to Ford's leadership campaign and to the PCPO to help Ford get elected. Now his company gets an exclusive deal to take over Service Ontario's location. So you see, here in Ontario, we have these things called Service Ontario, and that's where you go to renew your driver's license, get a new health card, you know, provincial government type stuff. And so now they're saying, well, we'll get to it. So modus operandi of Ford Nation is to surreptitiously hand over every vital public service and asset to private corporations with significant harm to Ontarians. Shoppers Drug Mart. Yeah, they got a lot of the COVID vaccines and testing and stuff were sent to pharmacies within this Shoppers Drug Mart brand because, again, they supported Doug Ford. Now Staples, an office supply store, will be where you renew your health card. So you can buy that stationery that you've been needing while you go and renew your health card. Huh. Let's see. Ford government to close some Service Ontario locations. The Ford government is closing an unspecified number of Service Ontario locations, City News has learned. The outlets where Ontarians can do things like renew driver's license and health cards will be replaced by kiosks inside some Staple Canada stores as part of a pilot project first announced this month. And remember, the guy who runs Staples donated lots of money to Doug Ford. Gee, I wonder why this happened. Huh. Seems a little coincidental there. Well, the government confirmed in December 7th news release that Service Ontario kiosks would open in select Staples stores to reduce the overall cost to deliver government services to the public. It made no mention of the fact that a number of the centers would be closing. A number of factors were considered when our government conducted lengthy consultations with retail partners on the pilot, including the size of the stores, parking availability, number of locations across Ontario, and willingness to participate, a spokesperson with the Premier's office says. Staples Canada was selected as all locations met this criteria, and customers will be able to benefit from a 30% improvement to current service accessibility hours. You see, the thing is that all the Service Ontario locations I have ever seen are all in strip malls with ample parking available. I don't think that was an issue. It wasn't an issue. Sources tell City News that some of the soon-to-be shuttered locations have been family business for decades, and that owners were given just 70 days notice that their business was being closed. So the Service Ontario, it's public-private. So it's a public operation, but is often run by a private company. So some of these were family businesses for decades. Employees of impacted private service providers are also being provided opportunities to continue employment with Staples Canada, the government spokesperson added. So are they going to get the same pay that they got before. Because I imagine that they were getting paid fairly decent for working at Service Ontario. So now that they're going to be a cashier at Staples, are they going to get paid the same? Or are you just saying this like it's a benefit to them that they can give up the job that they've been working for years and know to go work in an office supply store? Are they going to get paid the same? Yeah, Staples didn't want to respond to questions about it. NDP saying closing down Service Ontario locations, details of how many your services will blah, 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 blah. Yeah, the other party leaders are saying, how dare you? But really, is that shocking? Is it shocking? Oh, okay, here we go. Just to build on this, just saw this little headline. For government to pay Staples. To pay Staples as retailer looks to monetize Service Ontario. So the CEO of Staples, who donated a whole bunch of money to Doug Ford in his re-election campaign and stuff like that, will now be paid to retrofit their retail locations for shutting down Service Ontario's and monetizing Service Ontario. Yeah, retailer looks to monetize Service Ontario. Okay, very interesting there. The Ford government is planning to use taxpayer dollars to retrofit Staples Canada stores that are getting Service Ontario outlets, sources tell City News. So this is breaking. I haven't even seen this yet. The exact dollar amount is unclear, but multiple sources say the government will foot the bill for the necessary store upgrades to accommodate the kiosks, which are part of a pilot project first announced. Neither the Minister of Public or Business Service Delivery nor the Premier's office responded to City News when asked about the cost. Staples Canada advised City News to contact the ministry on that question. Spokesperson. Yeah. Oh, that was in the other article. And then just, yeah, the NDP saying, how dare you? Interesting how that plays out, isn't it? Can't say I'm shocked. That is a problem here in Ontario that not enough people are paying attention to, is how much privatizing Doug Ford is doing to public services. It's everything you can imagine he's finding a way to privatize, but just under the radar so people don't necessarily see that it's happening. Horrible. It's horrible that not enough Canadians are staying plugged in, because it's easy to make this not happen in Canada. The way our political system works, it's easy to not have this. It's easy to have our politicians, actually serve the people if people actually went out and voted properly and stay engaged in politics and, encourage different people to run and all that sort of stuff. It's fairly easy to change it. But like the amount of corruption that Doug Ford is under, it's so blatant. Like, can South Africa maybe come over here and take him to the ICJ? Because of how blatant this is. Like, everyone can look at what Doug Ford is doing and know it's corruption. But where are the consequences? Where is the accountability? Where is the political price to pay for what he's done? This will harm people in this province for decades to come. And yet so many people are not paying attention to what is happening. It's really kind of gross. It's horrible that this is happening, but as horrible, far more horrible is what's happening over in, I believe this is Edmonton. Is it Edmonton? Let me just check. Yeah, Edmonton. It's always worse in Alberta. Let's just say that. It's always worse in Alberta. Arresting journalists and tearing down shelters that homeless people were using not to freeze to death in the winter. When people say spending millions on police doesn't get you the results you want as a society, this is what they're referring to. Yeah. I'm pretty sure that 20 million that the Toronto Police Services wanted would help them not tear down encampments in city parks. Video award-winning Indigenous journalist Songstress 28 is led away by two EPS officers with her hands behind her back at the encampment clearing at 95. She is apparently being charged with obstructing justice, and her lawyers are trying to secure her release. Now, remember last time I did a live stream, I was mentioning how the guy from Rebel News, David Menzies, how he was temporarily arrested and, he was released without charge for bumping into a police officer while he was harassing an MP. And he's suing, the police and the MPs for being wrongfully charged when he was released. Now, he shouldn't have been arrested, and I will say that. And do you know what? Neither should this journalist. So I don't think Rebel News is going to be saying much about this. I don't think they're going to be supporting her in her actions on what should be done with the Edmonton police taking her away and actually charging her. Solidarity with unhoused residents and their supporters who are facing mass evictions and displacements in dangerous temperatures in Edmonton. There is a campaign to attack unhoused people across this so-called country. So video violent scenes as EPS break up encampment. Resident Elder Roy Cardinal is seen with blood in his mouth and is led away in handcuffs after being taken to the ground in handcuffs. This sweep was done at -22 with a -30 wind chill. And as you can see, the police are being quite aggressive in their actions. Yeah, where's Rebel News talking about this? They're not going to, because they were only performatively crying about what happened to them. But putting somebody face down in the snow when it's that cold out, pushing their chest into the snow when it's that cold out, you're seriously endangering people's lives. And the fact that people have to live in these tent encampments when it's that cold out because there's no other place for them to go, that's the crime. Not people living there. That's not the crime. The crime is that they have to live there because the city isn't providing other places for them to live. Oh, look, even his midriff got exposed in that temperature because of how aggressive the police were handling him. So he was skin exposed to that snow. From Agent NDN, and these fucking scumbag cops will collect taxpayer-funded pensions after spending their days brutalizing the unhoused Indigenous people whose land they are occupying. Fucking racist scum. This is Canada. Yep, this is Canada. So Edmonton City Police preparing to take down and take out Indigenous homeless people right now. And this is Canada. And the Toronto police and the Edmonton police, they're two of a kind. The Edmonton police will say that they need more and more money just so that they can inflict this sort of violence on the community. Just like I'm pretty sure encampments in Toronto are, even with Olivia Chow, who's now the mayor of Toronto, who said that this would end. It happened not too long ago where an encampment was taken apart and then huge cement pillars were put on the private grounds because they were on a church ground, private grounds. But then these huge cement pillars were put in place so that they couldn't go back. So even with all the money, all the supports, they still are this violent towards such a vulnerable group of people. So here is the article. I've linked to it below so that you can read it in full. Ricochet journalist Brandy Morin arrested by Edmonton police during encampment raid. The unlawful arrest was triggered by Morin filming police arrests that she describes as violent. So Ricochet is a great Canadian resource for news. Strongly recommend that if you're looking to learn more about Canadian issues, check them out. So this afternoon, Brandy, a journalist on assignment for Ricochet Media, was arrested by Edmonton Police Service while covering a police raid on an unhoused encampment. Brandy was coincidentally present to conduct interviews when police started to set up for a raid, including setting up a cordon of yellow tape out of clear view of the encampment. When the raid began, Brandy was filming police arrests that she describes as violent. She was told to leave the area by a police officer and explained that she was a journalist while covering what was happening and would not be able to do so if she left. She also explained to the officer that legal precedent from high courts in two provinces hold that police exclusion zones what prevents journalists from doing their jobs are unlawful. She was arrested and handcuffed and informed she would be charged with obstruction. She was taken to a police station where she was told she may be held up to 72 hours before seeing a judge. She also suffered a minor injury to her wrist in the course of being arrested. So, I strongly recommend that people go and check out this article. I've linked to it below. Read it in full. Very informative, just absolutely disgusting behavior by the police. Yeah, she is an internationally renowned freelance journalist. And they still did this to her. And I've covered other stories where journalists just trying to cover stories are getting arrested. Yet you won't hear Rebel News talk anything about them. But when the Rebel News person was temporarily arrested for assault, they made a huge uproar about it. But you see, this is the thing. I'm consistent. I don't think that Rebel News journalist should have been arrested or put in handcuffs at all. And I definitely don't think Brandy here should have been arrested and assaulted. Like, that's the thing. Police get away with doing things to other people that is considered a crime should anyone else do it. The fact that she was injured during this says a lot. Like, with all the police there, they couldn't have found a different way of doing it. No. They had to do it in such a way that she was injured. And she wasn't the only one injured. Other people were injured. Canada is not the utopia people seem to think it is. Anyway, I got through all my news stuff that I wanted to get through. It's only been 2.5 hours. So let's check the sandbox. Flora 4, those cat names are adorable. Hope you got to choose the name. Yep. Abernathy, not spelt the way that you think it is. Who recognizes his name. Come on up, Abernathy. Come on. He's a really smart kitty. I got him in August from a rescue. He's a Bengal mix. He's so pretty. He's so pretty and he's so smart. Yeah. There's a story behind his name. I have a video about it on my channel, so you can go check it out. It's a sweet, sad story on how he got his name. And then around the time I adopted him, I also adopted another cat from a different litter. They're 2 months apart. Got them from 2 different rescues. And his name is Lanier, and he's an orange tabby. And he's named after a Babylon 5 character. And I have my old guy, Frodo, who's about 16 now, I would say. Actually, I have a picture of Frodo. That's Frodo right there. Um, and I'm pretty sure people can tell where his name came from. That said, I'm still working on paying off his vet bills that I had to take him to the vet. I think it's gotten to the point in his life where I'm always going to be worried about his health. Because he's not eating as much as I would like him to, but he is eating. He's not being as active as I would like him to be, but he is being active. He has kidney issues, possibly other issues, but all any more testing would do, any more x-rays would do, would just tell me what he is dying from. There's nothing at his age that can really be done that would cure him. So I'm just hoping that I have a little bit more time with him because I'm not ready to lose him. And I adopted these two to give him company because he lost his sister back in the spring. I had another cat named Tulip, and she passed away. So, but I'm not ready to lose Frodo. He's a special kitty. So if people can, those were his initial vet bills. That I had to do back in. I think these ones were November. I had to take him in September or November. But if you can, please help. I'm very close to paying off those vet bills. Let's see. It's only $40 more to go until his vet bills were for his emergency until they're paid off. Every little bit helps. If you're Canadian, you can send an e-transfer to SandeeLovas@gmail.com. I also have a PayPal link in the description box below. But any money above that would also be greatly appreciated because around Christmas, all three of them were sick. This guy here and his brother Lanier both came down with a cat cold. But it hit him really bad. He had a red infected eye and stuff, and he had to go on antibiotics. But yeah. Here, people would want to see you. They want to actually see you, you know. As he chomps on the necklace. Ugh. No, don't play with the necklace. Look over here. People want to see you. You're so pretty. You're so pretty. Down you go, down. Yeah. So I did choose their names. So live, use uBlock to disable JavaScript and refresh. I know what you're saying, but I'm live streaming. And doing that with an article is a big no-no to then share it against monetizing them reasons. Anyway, I can share free articles or articles that I am actually paying for. I can, however, figure out a way of reading the articles. Vanessa, you work for us. Simple as that. Little piggies don't know the budget cuts. Stop being so freaking useless. Yeah, please. Just 1.2 billion? We're supposed to get by on that? Don't know what this is in reference to. It's like, it looks like somebody's correcting me on something. Oh, the US. Oh, okay, you're talking about police budgets in the United States. Lynn, I hear when people have secure food, housing, and the ability to feel like they're contributing their skills to society in a way they find meaningful, violence and property crimes virtually dissipate. Yeah. Mm-hmm. If people weren't, desperate to survive, they would be less likely to commit crimes in order to survive. Shade Dragon. Anybody else just wondering why the dude declared dead in Oregon was actually alive and well? Was he misdiagnosed? Did he get better? I saw a headline about that. But I haven't seen anything more into it right now. Brenda Knoll. Enforced parking equals generate revenue. Yes. Yeah, it'd be funny to be sitting there with the doctor and then the doctor's like, yeah, no, I think you're terminal. I think you're dead. And you'd be like, but I'm not. Like, and the doctor's like, nope, you're definitely, I'm not reading any vitals from you right now. I don't think you're alive. But you'd be like, but doctor, I'm right here. Nope, you're definitely dead. I'm going to mark on this piece of paper, you are dead. Sorry about that. And you're like, doctor, I'm right here. Flora 4, huh? Run those numbers back. The billion in police force runs translates to how much money per occupant? I don't math well. Oh yeah, Americans. You probably don't know how much 1.2 billion Canadian is. So after conversion and all that sort of stuff, it's a lot. It's a lot of money. It's a lot of money. It's a lot. It's a lot. I missed all the comments about anything about Doug Ford being a moron anyway. Oh, Callie Ratting, thank you so much for the for the 50 units of currency. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. So I'm going to try scrolling up a bit more. I was wondering if there's any comments about Doug Ford. Now I'm just totally losing my place in the chat. In the sandbox. Me, it's the sandbox. Let's call it sandbox. Grand Theft Autobot. I've never heard of it until now. Just now. Damn, we suck. Talking about the Operation what was it? Soap? Yeah, Operation Soap. I just knew it as the bathhouse raids. I didn't know it had such a silly name. But yeah, I strongly recommend Canadians to look into it because like Toronto does have one of the largest pride celebrations in the world, and it all began because of the bathhouse raids, which is why there's also a lot of tension when it comes to police marching in the parade, as considering the origin of it. Grand Theft Autobot, I don't even know how people in Ontario Works can get by these days. They don't. They don't. I talked a bit about it in one of my last live streams. And the thing is that a lot of people are like, oh, it's all able-bodied people on Ontario Works, and so they should all be able to go out and get a job. They're just lazy. They're not looking for work. But the reality is, a lot of people waiting to go on Ontario Disability are on Ontario Works. but they're waiting for their application to go through, or they should be on Ontario disability, but for whatever reason they got rejected because they don't like accepting people onto Ontario disability. So a lot of people on Ontario Works are people who actually cannot work. They're not all able-bodied, able-minded people that can work. Abernathy is back. What are you chewing on? Don't chew on the... He likes to chew on the cords. Don't! Go! Go! Let's see, let's see. Shade Dragon. Oh, good. Now I know never to use staples again. Yeah. Unfortunately, I need to. Like, that's the thing. Like, for my art supplies, like when I print off images and stuff that I use in my art and whatnot, I go to Staples because it's cheap just to get a couple prints that are colored. And other simple things like that. Like, it's so hard to boycott certain things when you have no choice but to use them. It's the same as people saying, oh, you should boycott Walmart or something. And it's like, how am I supposed to do it? Because, you know, hey, sorry, he was chewing on some cords. I gotta get him out of here. Abernathy, out. Come on, out. Out. I said, get out of here. Out. Scooch. Scooch. Ah. Sorry about that. I could see the camera shake a little bit, and so then I knew he was probably going for the cord. I need to slather them all in lemon juice. So I was saying, what was I saying? Yes, that it's really horrible to live in a system where we have no choice but to participate in the system that's harming us. It is, yeah. Shade Dragon, they're attempting to move to a privatized model of human services. Yeah, they're also looking to privatize how Ontario disability is paid out. And privatizing that, yeah, that's going to be horrendous for people like me on it. Because they will just look for every way to kick us off as possible. And if I could hold down a regular normal job, I wouldn't be doing this. Brenda Knoll, well, you wouldn't have to make Staples pay to retrofit their own stores. Yeah. It is just, it's so blatantly corruption. My dogs are goth. Danielle Smith is basically telling Doug Ford to hold her beer. Yeah, these conservatives that we have in power here are absolutely despicable. So, like when I lived in my car during the winter, the inside of the windows would freeze. Ouch, yeah. Yeah, apparently it's really cold over in Alberta right now. I haven't heard any winter weather. We're supposed to be having a winter storm right now, but I haven't I'm not hearing any wind. Good for Gabby. Thank you so much for the $9.99. I really, really appreciate it. Oh, So Life, $5. Thank you. Super appreciate it. It skipped down to the bottom. Now I have to scroll up to where it was. I hate when it does that. It just jumps around. Morbius Dragon, I hope you're feeling better soon. I understand bipolar. I understand that. Just, try to remember it's temporary. The dips, they're temporary. Usually when I'm in those moods, I like to just disconnect from everything and do... I have comfort food movies, as I call them. That's like the Marvel movies where I watch them, and it's like chicken soup for the soul type thing. I don't watch them because they're cinematic marvels or something. It's just good to have on. But right now for me, instead of the Marvel movies, it's actually Star Trek Next Generation and Deep Space Nine and stuff. But I hope you're feeling better soon. Let's see. Obstruction, Shade Dragon. Obstruction, is that Canadian for resisting arrest? So much more polite. Sort of like you can sometimes be Canadian. Fuck you. Like sorry can be sometimes be Canadian. Yeah, I wouldn't say obstruction is resisting arrest. Obstruction would be like getting in the way. And then that's why they arrest you, and then you can resist arrest. James Fox, obstruction is filming their actions, not disrupting arrests, just documenting the arrest. This is not a crime by any country's standards. Yeah. And I covered another story where another reporter in Guelph was arrested because he was filming a car accident, and just standard like city news that he would normally report on, and he was arrested for just doing his job. Like, we're having reporters arrested all the time, and yet the one that gets the media attention is the one from Rebel News. Like all these other ones, they're not getting like I've seen the moron from Rebel News, David Menzies or whatever. He's getting coverage on CBC and some of these other networks, but the arrest of this journalist for Ricochet, I don't think it's going to make mainstream media. The arrest of that one reporter in Guelph doesn't make mainstream media. But oh no, Rebel News, the legitimate Rebel News, their reporter makes all the news, even though he wasn't charged. He was released without charges. And I don't think the police should have put him in handcuffs for what happened. And what happened, like what these reporters are even less than what happened with him, because with him, he bumped into a plainclothes police officer. And so then the police officer was saying, hey, you assaulted me, and then assaulted him. These reporters are literally just standing there, not in the way, doing their jobs, and they're getting arrested and charged. Good for Gabby. Look at those paws. Yeah, Abernathy he's a Bengal mix, and I didn't know that when I adopted him. I just thought he was a really pretty tabby. But beautiful paws, beautiful color. Like his fur is gold. Like it's gold and black, and I keep on wanting to see if under some lights it looks like it's blue and black or something like that. That whole dress thing that used to be an issue. Like, can I get that to happen with his fur? It'd be funny. But he is a beautiful cat. Da, da, da. My dogs are goth. I sent stuff from Amazon last week. I have to remember to help the kitties instead. You know what? I appreciate it though. That's the thing. Like, I super appreciate the pick-me-ups from Amazon, like a bag of M&Ms, cat treats, or anything that I get, because it's one less thing that I have to buy, and it's just a reminder that there's people out there that really appreciate what I'm doing, and it helps to keep me motivated, to keep me going. Because if it's one less thing I have to buy, then that's money that I can then put towards the vet bills myself. So when I say every little bit helps, I mean it. Like, every little bit helps. Soul Life. I saw a woman in the UK say she wants to make it so everyone on disability has to work from home and do their part. You see, the thing is that a lot of people on disability can do some work. The problem is that you can't force employers to take us on. So can I work? Well, I'm working right now, but I'm not getting paid well to do this. You know, become a patron. So I can do this, but if I had to, I could work in an office in Excel spreadsheets. I'm very good at that, but it's been so long since I've been in Excel, it's going to take me a few months to get back up to speed before I'm expert level again, which I was. I could do magical things in Excel at one time. But you can't force a company to hire me. I don't have a college diploma. I don't work well with people. You know, my optimal setting would be like, put me in a closet away from people and only have one or two people that I communicate with, whom I will then bombard with questions all the time. Like, it's, and then I know other people on disability, they can knit cloths, they can do gardening, they can, you know, do little things that are technically work, but they're not going to get paid for it. Not in any meaningful sense. So a lot of people on disability can work under certain circumstances, but we're being forced into jobs that would harm us. And not only that, it's then toxic for the work environment for the other employees. And there are some people on disability who it doesn't matter how much you work with them, how many tools you give them, they simply cannot work. It is, yeah. So to that woman who thinks that everyone should be working from home, just say, okay, fine, she can be their employer. If she thinks it's that easy, she can just go and hire all of them. Ah, it skipped down again. Ah. Okay, there's where I was. And I'm just scanning through the comments. BKK, you mean Jonathan Letterhack Loons? Letterhack at 10 tonight. He's doing his regular reading. Monope. Also, I'm a sociopath because I don't really like syrup on my pancakes. But I think I'm okay because I do enjoy copious amounts of butter. No syrup on your pancakes. And you want to be a Canadian citizen? It's required by law that we have to have syrup on one meal a day. Morbius Dragon. Thank you, Sandy. You're welcome for whatever you were thanking me for. Da, da, da. Da, 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 da. Oh, I have to have dinner after this too. I forgot to eat beforehand. I was watching the Majority Report and got distracted for some reason. I don't know. Maybe it's the... I don't know. Sometimes it's distracting. I don't know what would be distracting on the Majority Report or on my show. I don't know what could possibly be distracting. Not distracting at all. Nope. Mm-mm. Okay. I'm just trying to see if there's anything that I should be responding to. Morbius Dragon, I can't work because of mental and physical disability. Yeah. Mental health wise, me and work aren't compatible. And then work environments become toxic for other people who have to then deal with me if that's the case. I don't get along well with people. That's why I can handle doing this easier, I think, because it's just me. And my art. You see, that's the thing. I can work. I can do my art, but who's paying me for that? Yeah, check out my art, SandeeLovas.com. Oh, speaking of which, next week I'll be taking off so that I can focus on my art. So I'm doing a live stream Sunday at 6, but then the following live stream after that will be, if I look at the calendar, I guess the 24th? That's a Wednesday. So I'm doing a stream the 14th, Sunday the 14th, and then, yeah, taking a week off, so it'd be like January 24th. Because I didn't have a Christmas break, because I wanted to make sure that people who were lonely around Christmas could have some support from regular faces in communities that they're used to going into. Morbius Dragon, it would be awesome if I could have a cat, but I can't afford it, especially when my apartment complex charges you $50 every month to have an animal. You're American, right? Because that doesn't fly here in Canada. You can't do that. Like technically, they're not allowed, landlords aren't allowed to deny us pets. It still happens. But technically they're not allowed to say no to you as a tenant for having pets. The closer I get to the bottom, the more it will just jump when I'm trying to read these chats and scan through them. Brenda Knoll, UBI, yes. Universal basic income. It's more complex than that. Like, I think socialized housing for one, universal basic income, free healthcare. Because the problem with some UBI programs is they want to unload all the other services onto that, and that can't be the case. So we need full extensive healthcare, we need socialized housing, and then we need enough money to pay our bills and get groceries and, have some joy in our life, be able to do something nice every now and then. Okay. Flora 4. Yep, and the U.S. charges a pet deposit and pet rent rate. Rate can be anywhere from $20 to $100 a month. It is crazy to have both. Wow. You know what? America sucks. I'll say it. America sucks. I'm so grateful I'm on this side of the border, even with all of our issues, but compared to the States, it's a lot nicer up here. Oh. Does Alaska count as America since I'm in Alaska and now as for Canadians? Hello, Southerners. Shade Dragon says, no, you're still American. Still American. Because you have, oh, what was her name? The joke of a running mate. I'm so bad with names, I can't remember her name. John McCain's running mate. Yeah. Okay, so I think that's all. I think I'll wrap things up. Oh, Sarah Palin. Yep, that was her name. It was great hanging out with all of you tonight, Sunday at 6 p.m. Be doing their live stream. I'm also looking to bring other people onto my streams from time to time so that I can chat. Looking to expand my audience in any way whatsoever. If I could get onto other lefty programs, so plug me to other lefties, and if I can get onto their programs to help bring attention to mine, it will always be beneficial. Let's see. Let's do the whole socials and contacts and stuff, because I get so fancy. I actually have a lot of images in here I need to delete that I was using for one of the other ones. So yeah, if you can, please support my content by becoming a patron. Every little bit helps. Thank you so much to the people who already have, and to all the people who have sent me something off the Amazon wish list. It really, I understand how tough times are. And so I really appreciate people putting me into their budget to help support my content. Also, you can follow me on Twitter. Just Twitter. You know, I'm on these other ones sort of technically, but it's Twitter. I'm still on the Hostile Fart Sauna regularly. I need to work at clipping my live streams. If I had an editor, that would be so helpful. I do reply to emails eventually. I have to remember to get to them. So for content about my channel, you can email LeftoftheBox@gmail.com. About my art is SandeeLovas.com. And I do try to get to the emails. I just forget. Yeah. So I'm trying to think, am I missing something? Of course, thank you to all the wonderful people coming out, and to the wonderful mods, keeping the sandbox shit free. I'm thinking of like, it's now picturing like a big litter box that you're keeping the shit out of, but you know. And yeah, I think that is it. And I hope you appreciated the Sam Cedar look. Yeah, I'm saying Sam should try on this shirt maybe. I don't know. I don't know if purple's his color. I keep on delaying because I keep on getting distracted by the chat moving. So if all you guys stop first, that would help. I think that's it. Okay. I think I'm done. I'm done for the night. So, salut, à la prochaine. Thank you for watching and stay tuned. I'm Sandy, wishing your tomorrow is better than your today.